You know, normally on our YouTube channel, we present about 2 videos a week, but there is so much activity happening in the United States and also globally that when these events begin to accelerate in the manner of which they are, I always feel like it's good to share with the people what we call our mini updates, or mini, M-I-N-I, not many, but many YouTube updates. And I'm very thankful for those of you that keep up with us, several hundred thousands of people that are part of our Perry Stone YouTube channel. As most of you know, that if we go back to the history of the United States, that we did not begin our history in Washington, D.C. Washington, D.C. was built much later. Our history actually begins in Pennsylvania. A man by the name of William Penn was the individual who took much of the land in the early part of Pennsylvania, and it was originally called Penn's Woods. And William Penn, of course, was a very strong believer. And if you will go to history, it will tell you that William Penn wanted to have a Christian experiment by having a place called Penn's Woods, of which he would form a Christian community. So the history of the state of Pennsylvania, from its very early beginnings with William Penn and his family and the other founders who formed that state, is very much geared toward religious freedom. It's very much also geared, believe it or not, to the Bible and to the Christian faith. Now, the area that is important in our founding is Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. And of course, Benjamin Franklin and Washington and John Adams and Madison and all these, John Hancock, all of these men that were a part of the framing of the Constitution and also of the Bill of Rights and the Declaration of Independence, most of this, as you know, was done in the area of Philadelphia. Philadelphia, in the original language, meant the city of brotherly love. So when you say Philadelphia, philos, which means love, and Delphos, which is brother. So it's the city of the love of the brothers, or the city of brotherly love. And this was the name, of course, that was given to it a long, long time ago. Now, let's move from the founders in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and let's move to contemporary times. The big controversy, or at least one of the biggest controversies about this present election, centers in the state of Pennsylvania, in the city of Philadelphia, as it relates to illegal votes, or votes that were counted 2 and 3 days later, or votes that should have been postmarked the night of the election and they were changed, or votes that were brought in from out of nowhere in boxes. And I'm not going to go into the controversy of voting, because there's so many people that are involved, that are lawyers, that have YouTube videos, or they have blogs or news reporters or whatever it might be, that can give you that information much more correctly or properly than I could, along with their facts concerning that. So the point that I want to make is this. In the book of Revelation, chapter 3, there are 7 churches of Asia that are addressed. Jesus could have addressed literally 50 or 60 churches, because back in the day that John penned the Apocalypse, which is the book of Revelation, there were early churches and strong churches all over the place. However, the 7 churches that are addressed in the book of Revelation are 7 churches that John the Apostle was connected with, and are 7 churches which were located at the base of the Taurus Mountains in what is today called Turkey. Back in John's day, it was simply called Asia Minor. Now, you know, there's the church of Laodicea and the church of Smyrna and the church of Ephesus. But one of the churches that I want to speak about for just a moment and bring you a verse that's found in the 3rd chapter of Revelation is the church of Philadelphia. That's right. In case you didn't know it, one of the 7 churches addressed in the book of Revelation is the church at Philadelphia. Now, as the Lord is revealing things, and I could have read the scriptures and gone into it, but it would have made this much longer than I wanted it to be, this presentation, I'd like for you to go to the 3rd chapter of Revelation and look at the church at Philadelphia, and there's a statement that the Lord made that really jumped out at me about an hour ago. And it says this to the church at Philadelphia: because you've kept the word of my patience. And he's talking now to church believers who existed in the time of John, that wrote the book of Revelation in 95 AD approximately. So this gives you a context. Because you've kept the word of my patience. In other words, because you've waited patiently, because you've stood with the truth, I will keep you. And that word in Greek there means to preserve you from the hour of testing. Now there's the word, from the hour of testing, which is coming upon all of those who dwell on the earth. Now, there's three interpretations to that. One is that the hour of testing was referring to the persecution that would come to all of the churches from the time of Nero, and there were 10 persecutions from Nero all the way to the time of Emperor Constantine. That it was a prediction of the persecutions which would take place following the death of the Apostle John, and it did happen. Christians were crucified, martyred, hung, beheaded. So was that hour of testing coming upon the whole earth an allusion, or a reference, I should say, to the persecution coming to the churches? Some scholars say that verse has already been fulfilled. Now, some prophetic teachers will say this, that hour of testing that comes on the whole earth could allude to the Great Tribulation, which is mentioned in both the Old Testament and referred to by Christ and the apostles in the New Testament, and is basically what the entire book of Revelation from chapter 6 all the way to chapter 18 is about, the future 7-year tribulation. So the Lord is saying, those who keep the word of my patience, I will keep you, preserve you. Actually, it can refer to, according to some people, to pull you away from, to draw you to myself from the hour of testing. Some people use that to say, well, the church is going through the tribulation, but God will keep us in it. And others use it to say God will draw us to himself when this hour of testing comes. But let's look at this from a different perspective. Now, once again, when I say something of this nature and I pull out what's called a prophetic parallel, it is not a doctrinal issue. It is just an observation. And it's an observation to help you think and just make you say, wow, could this be possible? Sometimes prophetic scriptures have a dual application. The Lord said that when he called his son, Jesus, to Egypt and brought him back, the gospel writer said this, that it might be fulfilled which was spoken above the prophet, out of Egypt I've called my son. If you go back to Hosea, where the original verse is found, it's not talking about Jesus there. It's talking about how God sent Israel to Egypt and brought them out of Egypt back to the promised land. That's what you call a prophecy with a dual application, a literal application that deals with Israel, a prophetic application that dealt with Christ. So perhaps this hour of testing could have more than one application. So this is the point I make. There's never been a time in my lifetime, and I've talked to people that even survived the Great Depression, even in the Great Depression, that affected the entire world like COVID-19. Now, as most of you have already heard, there's vaccines that are coming out, but there's so much controversy on the vaccines. People are saying, I'm not going to take it because I'm hearing this, I'm not going to take it because I'm hearing that, and I'm not going to take it because I don't take vaccines. Now, that's work out your own salvation with fear and trembling. I'm not going to give anyone an opinion of what they should do or should not do related to anything medically. We've never done that and never will. But I will tell you this, it is an hour of testing. Businesses have been shut down in some places for 8 months. People are running out of money in some states. They're getting ready to close schools, and they're closing New York and other cities down again. And I just got word from a friend of mine that there is a discussion, it's not being publicly discussed, but he's in the now, that if Biden becomes president, in which he's been announced president already, but if the alleged voter fraud is, and I'm using alleged to keep peace with everybody here, but if the alleged voter fraud is turned over and Trump comes in, we have a whole different issue there. But if Biden remains president, his plan is 4 weeks to 8 weeks, 1 to 2 months, shutting the entire country down to try to stop COVID. Now, whether he does that or not would be yet to be seen if he is sworn in as president. My point is, any way you cut it, it's going to be probably February or March before there's a real breakthrough in this whole COVID thing based on what they're going to do, how they're going to do it, or based on perhaps some kind of a vaccine. Any way you cut it, it will be an entire year as of this next Passover that this has been in existence in the world. Millions of people, I think it's 11 million, have been affected. I think over 1 million worldwide have died. My numbers may be wrong there. I'm trying to go from memory. But the point is, it is an hour of testing. It is testing the patience of parents who have to keep their kids at home. It is testing the young people who can't go out in public or perhaps have meetings in theaters and restaurants with their friends. It is testing the patience of school teachers who have to teach online instead of in the public school. It's testing the patience of pastors in churches who can't have a gathering in their church, and in some states they're telling them not to sing or worship. Everybody's patience is being tested. So what did the Lord say to this church? Because you've kept the word of my patience, I'm going to preserve you from the hour of testing, which is coming on the entire earth. So that is a third prophetic application to something I saw. Now, isn't it strange that all the focus, at least a lot of it, has been on Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, the place of our founding fathers, but also the place of this great church mentioned in the book of Revelation that would see the hour of testing. And it's an hour of testing politically. It's an hour of testing with the voting. And there's so many voices and so much confusion. And the only thing that will ever straighten out this planet is the return of the Messiah, Christ, when he returns back to earth to rule and reign for those 1,000 years. Now, my two final words I want to give you. Number one, you've got to be in prayer if you're a believer. It doesn't matter what church you go to. Begin to spend time, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 30 minutes, if you can, an hour, just alone with God in intercessory prayer. Prayer changes circumstances. Prayer changes people, and people help change things. And God, of course, changes things through prayer. The second thing I want to encourage you to do, most of you are aware, if you watch our telecast, that I have written a brand new landmark prophetic book called The Final Ciphers. It took me 6 months to write this, and I wrote it at the beginning of the coronavirus, and the Spirit of God began to give me direct revelation on some things that I really want to share with you. You can order the book at perrystone.org, or you can call our office at 423-478-3456 and order it that way. I also suggest that you get the two audio CD album, How to Survive and Prepare for Hard Times. It's a faith builder, but it's also filled with a lot of practical information that I have received from people who know how to deal with national disasters, national crisis, and things which we know in the future it's inevitably going to happen. But the main thing is keep your faith, because if you don't have much of anything in the natural, as long as you've got your faith and you know how to pray, God can help create things that don't even exist. God bless you. Thank you for your time, and keep watching Perry Stone YouTube channel. And if you'll subscribe to it, then you'll get the alerts right when we do our video updates. God bless you. Click the like button and subscribe to this channel, and never miss a video by clicking the bell to get the alerts when a new video is posted. This YouTube channel is made possible by your generous donations. So to support our outreach of teaching, visit perrystone.org/YT.